Hello and welcome again to our broadcast, The Kathy A.E. Jones Show. Can I tell you that I am so excited today because we're going to be talking about education. I think everybody is thinking about education right now because whether you're going to school in the summer, you're going to school in the fall, or your semester starts in the winter season, spring and winter season, you need to be able to know what it's like to have a healthy education for your child and for yourself. Can I tell you that today we're also going to be talking with my daughter, my real daughter, somebody say real daughter, Melanette Ellison. I call her Melanette Jones Ellison, but she is married now and has a wonderful husband. But she is an employee of the Chicago school system, Chicago public school system, and she does a fantastic job. And so today we have some tips on just plain making sure that education is okay when it comes down to your students, when it comes down to the parents, and when it comes down to the teachers. I'm going to be looking out of my book, Whose Child Is This? And it's going to show at the bottom of the screen. I'm going to be looking and talking from my book, Whose Child Is It? And you'll see it on the screen where you can get a copy of it. Just before we work with the introduction of my daughter, I want to be talking about the subject of education. And in my book, Whose Child Is This? The DNA for parenting children that you, the world, and even God would appreciate or want. You want to be able to look on page 75 and it will tell you of this chapter that we're talking about as teachers being a part of our family system. So I'm going to read a part of it first for you, and then we'll discuss some of the highlights of it. I'm on page 77 in Whose Child Is This? The DNA for Parenting Children that you, the world, and even God would want. There's a saying that was written by Benjamin Franklin, and the saying says, "Tell me and I'll forget. Teach me and I will remember. Involve me and I will learn." That's by Benjamin Franklin, and it's such a good little topic or description of what we have to do in terms of education for ourselves and for our children. Teachers have a part in our children's lives and in our lives. Children typically spend from 6 to 11 hours each day in school for nearly 10 months out of each year. During the school year, children generally spend more time interacting with their teachers than with the parents. Because children are spending more awake hours with their teachers, this author, which is me, I place a whole lot of responsibility on our family memberships, which would be the teacher, the parent, and the child. Adults have the ability to place, adults have the ability to influence in a child's life. Adults have the ability to impart influence in the child's life along with passion and values. Because of their influence in our child's life, they can create their kind of world and the world a child should have. Their kind of world and the world the child should have. The kind of world they think the child should have. Teachers are supposed to work from a standard curriculum, but as you know, they must do so in a way that the child will best digest the information and that they are presenting. If the teacher does not agree with or slants the curriculum presented on social issues, they can pause different scenarios to, we'll stop there. If the teacher does not agree with the slant that the curriculum presents on social issues. They can phrase different scenarios to cause the children to think they might need to challenge the information that their teachers are being mandated to teach. In other words, teachers can and many times do impact children as much as the parents do, whether they mean to or whether they don't mean to. Now, a role model is a person who inspires and urges us to strive for greatness, live out our innermost dreams, and to see the best in ourselves. A role model is someone we esteem and someone we aspire to be like. A role model is someone that we learn from through them and their circumstances or commitment to excellence, and through their competence to make us recognize our own personal growth. We look to them for instruction and we look to them for leadership. It is so important that we understand how these rights and obligations affect the parents and the children, because there are rights and there are obligations in terms of teaching and education. And so we want to make sure that we know what our rights are and what the education should be. Teachers can abuse their power by punishing public school children in inappropriate ways. Now, we know we have people that are go to private schools or send their children to private schools, and many times they don't have as much abuse because of the intense I want to say scrutiny that is given them by the people that are paying the bills. But those that are in public school many times can come upon abuse. And I say that because sometimes teachers are stressed out, especially in the public school system. They can be so stressed out with just trying to get the kids to come to class or being in class and having to deal with the types of attitudes that the students have, that it's really, really important that they understand, that parents understand that teachers are stressed too. Not only are the students stressed, but teachers are stressed. And so we have to look at them in a way that we want to make sure they're not abusing our children or abusing their power. Sometimes teachers get so frustrated with a child, they'll do like parents do at home. They grab them and they hit them, and they're not supposed to. They'll hit them repeatedly. I know in the Chicago Public Schools, we as teachers, and I am one of the people that works for Chicago Public Schools as a special ed classroom assistant, but we're not to be hitting on the children. We can lose our jobs for hitting on the children. The only thing we can do is protect ourselves from the children's abuse toward us. And many times those situations do happen, whether they be in children who are in special needs or whether they be mainstreamed in the classroom. We have to be able to protect ourselves. But there are certain ways that we can do that. We can't just go haul off and hit them in the face or slap them over the head with a book. We can't do that. That is not allowed in the Chicago Public Schools. Now, in some private schools, you'll find that they have disciplinary procedures, and you sign, and you need to look at what you're signing when you sign yourself or your child into a public school system or into any school system, of what their disciplinary rules are. So sometimes they hit them repeatedly. Sometimes they yell at them, just constantly yelling at them. You just ain't no good. And they would treat them like, excuse me, as if they did not have any right to think or even to give a chance to give an answer for the thing that's causing the disruption at the moment. Sometimes they were so gender biased. Sometimes teachers, you have to be careful if they are of a different gender, or if they figure that another child or your child has a different position in life. In terms of, there are a lot of children that go to public schools, transgender, sexuals, lesbians, whatever they identify as. I know in the Chicago public schools, we cannot make any reference to or let them know that they're any different from anybody else. By the same token, there are teachers who have those dispositions who will push things in the educational curriculum that will be slanted toward their gender biases. So, as parents, it's very, very important that we understand we cannot allow that kind of thing to happen. As Christian parents, we should especially be concerned about the curriculum that is being taught. We should be concerned about what is being taught, at what age it's being taught. Our children sometimes are being taught things that they're not even old enough to understand and shouldn't be introduced to by anyone except by the parent. So it's important that you look at those things and you pay attention to those things so that you can protect your child in the public school system. Sometimes teachers can shame a student or act racist toward a student. I know in many of the classrooms now, if it's not an all black neighborhood or all Hispanic neighborhood, or even if they are neighborhoods that are identified with those cultures, many times if there are students attending schools in those areas and they are not of the main culture, they can be treated differently from the perspective of a teacher or for other kids in the classroom. So it's important that we understand that those children, even though they're different, that they are not to be shamed and they're not to be given racist attitudes toward them. Sometimes in the school system, you get teachers that behave inappropriate toward their students. And one of the inappropriate forms of behavior is being physically involved with them. You are not to touch a child inappropriately. I don't care whether it's a public school, a private school, wherever the child is, there should be no inappropriate contact. And we define that as educators, at least I define that as an educator, your swimsuit area. You should not have anyone touching your child, and you need to explain to your child that anyone that makes you feel uncomfortable by touching you in any area of your body, especially in the swimsuit area, needs to be brought to the attention of the parent or to the attention of someone who is over that teacher, such as a principal or a dean in the school. We'll be right back. Hold on. We got a whole lot more. We're back, we're back. And we're talking about education, how to get the most out of the education that you are attending, because we have many adults that are attending school now, and also especially how to get the best out of education for your childhood youngsters in your home. We were talking about, before we went to the break, we were talking about abuse. I want to give you an example out of my book, and it's found on page 80 of Education, Whose Child Is This? I'm going to read this one example for you. One of the children that I was responsible for went to Fort Dearborn Elementary School. And for those of you who don't know a little bit about me, I'm just going to throw this in. I birthed two, I adopted two, and I fostered 31 foster children. So I have quite a bit of experience when it comes down to children and what has to happen in their lives for them to be successful. I don't take the glory for that. I give God the glory for that, because He's the one who helped me to be able to manage the children that He placed in my care. Now back to this example that I wanted to give you about how important it is for you to be involved and invested in your children. As I stated, one of the children I was responsible for went to Fort Dearborn. And granted that he was a handful at times, teachers are trained how to handle children that misbehave. And that is something that you need as a parent to always remember. Teachers are trained how to handle misbehaving students. So there's no excuse for them not to be able to handle them in an appropriate way. There are do's and there are don'ts. And one of the don'ts is that a child is not to be completely separated from the entire class. if the teacher allows them to remain in the classroom. Sometimes the student's behavior is so outrageous the teacher has to remove them from the classroom because they won't be able to get any other work done with the other students. And they will many times have partnerships with teachers that are next door, or they'll send them down to the principal's office, things that will not keep them from disrupting the classroom. But if they decide to let the child remain in the classroom, then a teacher a lot of times can move the desk of that child over to an area where they're isolated, but not where they're confined by themselves. They can call the parents. They can have them talk to the child to sit in another classroom, as I mentioned earlier. But it's important that they do not put them in a closet by themselves where they have no contact with anybody else, for like the coat closet in the classroom. That is against the law. They cannot do that, and they should not be doing that. And if your child comes home and you're wondering why he's upset and he doesn't want to go to school, you might want to have the conversation with him. Johnny, Susie, Maribel, KJ, why isn't it you don't want to go to school? Why don't you like school? And tell them that it's not a time that you're going to be punishing them, but you want to know the truth. And with the truth, you will be armed to give your child a better education. So here's the example that I wanted you to know about that I've written in my book. Parents have to know what's going on. In this particular situation, the child was being put in a closet, the classroom closet. So you guessed it, Mr. Usher was famous for doing just that. And when I found out about it, I was livid, especially since the child in question had to be in the coat closet for more than a week. And that's important. Parents, you have to listen to your children, understand what they're saying, and also keep contact with that teacher, close contact with them. Do I just let it go, or do I investigate the matter further? After finding out that he was doing this a lot of the students, I had to gently confront the teacher. Now, you can't go in acting like you know everything. The best way for you to do this is to ask for a conference with the teacher. You just can't jump into school during the class day and go in and holler at the teacher. That doesn't work. The principal was more interested in keeping the male teacher than confronting him about his unprofessional behavior toward his students. This was unfortunate. Sometimes because men teachers are very difficult to find in the school system. The principals do not exercise the authority over them that they should. They let them get away with murder. And that's really important, and it's unfortunate in this particular situation that was the case. They did not have a lot of male teachers. They had a lot of children that were misbehaving. They needed the male teachers, and so they let this teacher do what he deemed necessary to have control of his classroom. But as the parent or the caregiver of the child, I made sure that that teacher understood that for my child, because he was doing this with more than my child, but that for my child, that was not going to be acceptable. And I was prepared to go to the next level if he did it again, and made sure that he had my phone number, because teachers give excuses. They don't have phone numbers, and sometimes they have them, but parents change their numbers so often that the teacher has no way of getting in contact with them at that moment, or if they're at work and they're not available to calm a situation down that has been very volatile there at the school. I made sure that this teacher had my phone number. I made sure he had my husband's phone number, and that if he had any problem with my child, that all he had to do was pick up the phone and I would answer the phone, or he could email me. And like my daughter will mention in her segment with me with this education topic, is that sometimes it's important that you give an email, and it's important that you let them know that they can text you in case there is an issue. It's also our responsibility to make sure that the child that we're caring for, that they would know that there are going to be consequences if that teacher has to call them for a reason that was strictly on the child's fault. God expects children to obey their parents, and those who their parents have allowed to have authority over them. We also talk to them about inappropriate behavior and how that they are to respond when these type of things happen. So as a parent, it's important that you know the teacher, that you know the kind of disciplinary actions, that you know what is your child's behavior, and that you make sure that your child understands that the teacher is the teacher and the child is not the teacher, and make sure that that child understands that when they come home, there will be a repercussion for misbehaving out of order and not doing what they're there for, which is to learn. It's important that they know that they're there to learn. Now, parents, also, I want to say to you that it's important that you put your child in a situation where they don't have to always be compromising. As Christians, we have certain things that we believe and we don't believe. Some of us do not believe in celebrating holidays. Some of us do not believe in dancing. Some of us do not believe in other issues that makes our children vulnerable to stand out. And they don't want to stand out. They don't want to be the oddball out. If everybody's going to a dance and you don't believe in dancing and your children want to go to the dance, or, or if they're having some kind of activity at the school or after the school, like showing some type of movies. And even the movies, I can tell you, the movies that they're showing in these classrooms now that are given in their free time or whatever, I would not want my child sitting up under some of those movies, because that, first of all, they have adult themes. And, you really, and when you come down to 7th, 8th, high school, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, they're more liberal with the what they show the kids on their free time, and even educationally what they show them in terms of movies or excerpts. So it's important that as parents, if you want your child to be in an environment where they're going to feel comfortable, you might look at an alternative school. You might look at sending them to a Christian school where their values are the same as your values, or pretty much close to it. So the activities that the other students are participating in, your child will be able to participate in too. For instance, having Halloween parties. Some parents that are Christians do not agree with that. So it's important that you do not put your child in a system where they're going to be rebellious or can't do it. And so for some of us, we have children that need to be homeschooled, and there are terrific homeschool curriculums that you can get and be involved in and help your child to learn at a pace that they can learn in. You don't want to always have your child on medications when they do IEPs. You want to make sure that that is a necessary thing for your child. If your child needs medication, calming medications, maybe yes. But if not, if they just need a discipline or a different form or different environment to succeed in, you as a parent need to check that out. Well, I am excited again, like I said, to have my daughter here, and she'll be speaking when we come back. Stay with us. I know this is a blessing and going to be a blessing to many of you.